Relationships and being an INFP male. What a fun topic. That's what we're going to talk about today. My name's David Miller. I am a Los Angeles-based multimedia artist. This is my home, Primordial Creative. We are in San Pedro near Long Beach and Palos Verdes. So not central LA, but the bottom tip. And I've been an INFP creative since my early days of youth, watching The Muppets and fantasy films of the era like Star Wars up through, Lord of the Rings, and reading all the great fantasy INFP authors, Alan Moore, George Orwell, not a fantasy writer, but there's a commonality between that dreamlike, imaginative worldview that is both idealistic and also dips heavily into very dark themes, oftentimes things that scare us as kids, just sort of blown up really big when we become adult INFP creatives and make our movies, our songs, our books, and so forth. The INFP is very insular. Often the males are very shy. And when we fall in love, it's very deep and it's very long lasting. We don't fall in love to fall in love, and we're not prone to casual encounters and relationships. We want to pursue what we really care about, when we feel strongly about. So when it comes to the topic of relationships, I have an 18-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter, and the 18-year-old son is very much like me, and I find a lot of his questions about navigating the relationship world are things that I was, of course, curious about as a youngster, but it also has to do with, aligning with that inner ethics mentality or inner core that's so important to us. So this is kind of like what I would tell my 18-year-old son, but I'm telling it to you, the YouTube audience. Number one, there's a theory that you have to make a ton of mistakes to find what you really want in life. And I think you have to make mistakes, but you don't have to do them deliberately. So when you are interested in a person or a kind of person or an idealized person, you can ignore that that's important to you, but whatever you get involved in won't last because it's not within the realm of your ideal. Now, this is a very unrealistic thing for a lot of people, Well, ideally I want to have this job, but I can't get that job, so I'm going to do this other job until I can get that job, I'm just telling you from life experience that if you are wanting one thing and you're running in a different direction, then that thing that you want, you'll never get. That isn't to say you might find something else that you want or learn what you don't want in life, because we don't know that until we advance in our years and find that things that we thought were working for us actually aren't, or are working against us. But if you want somebody, like I want somebody who's creative and I can make art with, that's not like a super specific thing, but I have found, because art and creativity is so important to me, that if I'm dealing with somebody who isn't in those things and is just sort of like a spectator, or they're not ambitious about making things, or I just don't have enough in common with them. So I've dealt with these people before, and I know that doesn't work for me. I've dealt with people who are addicted to substances, to weed, or, they're big drinkers, and because of life experience of my parents being a certain way, that it isn't something I want in my life, So, number one, you don't have to be super specific, and you don't have to stick to your guns about everything, but really Focus on getting what would be good for you, what you're looking for. And if you're not seeing that in your environment or whatever, don't just compromise on everything because you don't want to be alone. That's a dead end, believe me. Number 2 thing about relationships. The INFP falls in love really fast because we vibe really fast with people. And that deep love with what you're in your imagination, what you're inventing in your head, can really quickly build up a false impression of a person. And then when that person doesn't match your idea of who they are, you get super, super disappointed. Now, the only way to really know a person is to be around them in a variety of situations over, let's say, past 3 months. 3 months to 6 months, you kind of get an idea of who that person really is. And that said, when you do get disappointed, the resentment you might feel, that they let you down or something, that's not the other person's fault. You're the one that came up with that idea in your head about them. So the way that you navigate that is you get to know the person and you hang out in different scenarios, and you got to check yourself frequently that, is this something that I made up in my head that this person thinks or feels this way? It's almost like being an investigative reporter, but like the disappointment we feel in other people can be tempered when you recognize that you probably make the same mistakes or the same things that annoy you in other people or things that you do. Not all the time, of course, but that's pretty frequent. We don't like a particular facet about ourselves, and then we see it in other people, and we're like, ugh, really makes me angry. There's things that remind me of my parents. Again, not the greatest relationship with my parents, who are long gone at this point, but I recognize that what you know from growing up is familiar to you, and if it was a bad habit like arguing or belittling people or putting on their ideas, sometimes you just recognize that in somebody that you're trying to have a relationship with, and it feels like that's normal to you because that's how you grew up. It's never going to be normal, whether or not you grew up with it, the negative stuff, and you don't have to repeat the same mistakes over and over. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So, number 3 thing about relationships. Who you are when you meet the person and who they are when you meet is going to change. And the woman I was married to, we were together 20 years. And we met in our early 20s, got married in our early 20s, had kids, moved to Arizona, got a house together, many pets, many beloved pets, dogs, cats, tortoises, birds, and so forth. And there was a core to each of us that got suppressed a little bit when we became a unit. And that's what long-term relationships do. They make you a unit. You're no longer David and other person. You're like this two-headed monster. And when the other person, it's a two-way street, by the way, but when the other person has issues with your core, I mean, you can work on it, you can change it, you can put it aside, but if something is in your core, it's important to you. And I don't think you should ask people to change a core trait about themselves. Nor can you ever fully understand that aspect of the person you're speaking with. So me being an artist, one of the things that's involved in it, I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a photographer and an animator, illustrator, sound design, you name it. But if I was to illustrate what it's like when my ex-wife had to live with me and deal with me being an artist, it meant I went on a lot of trips. I went on a lot of trips on my own. I am working with art models who are, 99.9% female, and we're doing cool things that cost money. And we're not doing cool things that cost money just to hang out. We're doing it because it's part of what's involved in making the art. No different than being a band on tour or making a movie and going to another country for 30 to 90 days and being on set all the time and not having visitors come to set. Being focused on this goal, this project that you're doing. And that's largely what my photography was like, where I'd go to other cities. I would shoot locally, but it was doing something really cool and really fun that involved other women that weren't her. So understandably, that was a bone of contention. The other kinds of art that I made, like the music or the illustration, all the artists I know that are like me, we don't turn it off at a certain time of day. We have the idea, we need to fulfill it, even if it means we're sitting in bed with the iPad and headphones on and we're making music or we're drawing or something like that. And that's really irritating to somebody who doesn't understand or think that way. When I listened to David Lynch's book, his audiobook, Room to Dream, recently, it wasn't Lynch talking about it. It was the woman writer. And he was quoting one of his now ex-wives. And of course, David Lynch has passed, but he lived with this woman for a long period of time. She wanted to have a baby. And David said, no, why can't I be enough? He's always felt in his heart of hearts, and he has many kids, but the art life doesn't really leave a lot of room for family and children, which not true. I mean, any job where you're very busy all the time makes it difficult to be like a homebody family person, but it's not impossible. And I do think my kids have given me a reason to continue pursuing my art life and elevating and trying to make it successful without compromising completely. But back to Lynch, he was basically persuaded by his wife at the time. She wants to have a baby, and he did not want to feel guilty for working and not having all the time that he could devote to the family. Now, when I lived through this, when I was still married and my kids were young, and I, had to go on these trips. Early on, I went on a trip 6 months into my son's life, and it was already set up, but it was to Australia with Scottsdale Community College, and it was to photograph alongside the Bakinji tribe, this Aboriginal indigenous community. And it was a 2-week trip, and so nothing involving art models. It was with a school. It was with a group of 18, 19 other Arizona Scottsdale Community College students and several professors. And so it was a really cool trip. My minor is in American Indian Studies, so indigenous cultures worldwide, and then mythology beyond that. But that kind of stuff has always been of really important interest to me. Also, I thought I was going to be more of a Sebastião Salgado type photographer at the time. And, but it was a trip that she just had a baby 6 months earlier, and she really was not happy that I went on that trip, but I did it. And that's kind of part of my core. If there's something that's important to me, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to block out other people's needs or wants, because I think in my heart of hearts, I have to do these things. It's not even a conscious choice, unfortunately. And for people who don't understand that, it's not going to be a healthy relationship. There's going to be resentment built up when one person wants a different kind of life than what the other person has, will pursue. You can wallpaper up this stuff as long as you can, It was definitely a lot easier when we had the kids under 10 years old because we were basically like a corporation tag teaming and raising these guys. But once they become more independent, you look at each other and you wonder if it was still like a thing that you could get excited about, you know, or is this person who we've supported each other for so long, are they actually actively working against me, and vice versa? At my age, I will tell you that euphoric love you feel when you're younger is hormonal. It's a chemical. Reason has very little to do about it. That's why you might find yourself falling in love with people who have social or political beliefs that actually like bother you. You know, I don't know how many people I've been around in my life who made some crazy statement, maybe something like super racist or anti-trans or homophobic or something, or just plain bizarre and dumb, but I'll like forget about it. I'll check it out of my mental memory of them because the chemicals in my body and my brain, the hormones, are making me feel like I want to be around this person. They make me happy in the way that candy makes you happy. There's a euphoric feeling that is not from reason. It's a chemical high. When you're older, you might still get those chemical high moments when you vibe correctly with a person, but they're tempered with knowledge that you've gained and wisdom that actually this person is toxic for me, this person is bad, this person is just like another experience I had where I was overlooking them saying things that were just so outlandish and you know, perpetually doing things like canceling or showing up drunk or inebriated, whatever. Like, you learn these red flags, these warning signs are not just, you know, for this 10 seconds or this today. They're a pattern. And the more you recognize patterns in other people, the more you stay away from it. So it's true that older people have a harder time connecting in the singles realm. And it's not because the pool has diminished by a lot. It's more that you've refined who you are and what you're looking for. And you understand that you can compromise that as much as you want, but you're going to end up single again anyways, because it's such an energy, soul, money drain to be in a relationship that you don't care about, that's not good for you. And it's also keeping you off the market from the potential relationship that is right for you, that is, once again, you guys being on the same team and going on the same path, not being on the same team parts of the day and then going on different paths the rest of the day, not being on the same team at all, you know, and actively working against each other. But you having an ideal relationship is not a bad thing. There's a lot of people out there that will tell you that if you stick to your ideal relationship, you will never, ever find that person. And I'm here to tell you that, one, your ideals are going to change throughout your life. Two, there are people who feel the same way as you. I know it because I'm doing INFP creative videos and people are watching these things. And three, you just are digging a hole if you're not sticking to your ethics and your ideals. It's not something that you can change if it is part of your core, and the right person is going to recognize that in you. So, love to hear your feedback. Leave it below in the comments. Best of luck to your new and creative endeavors. Talk to you next time.